it on this will actually be an interesting experiment because I'm not posting about it on Twitter or Discord, so we'll see how many people actually arrive here.
Popping
Okay.
in straight to it, yeah. Okay. And then afterwards, it'll just like the VOD will just be on. It'll just auto-generate it to YouTube,
Yeah,
I guess.
it'll be on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay.
I do have to go and change one setting. You have to designate whether the video is for kids or not because YouTube Kids and other content are treated differently
Oh,
legally.
yeah. Yep.
So I have to go and toggle that setting, and then it should go live.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I'll send you a link as soon as it's up too. Like, it's quick. So.
Sure.
All right. So hi, I'm Jem.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Looks like you're playing Tetris. So, do you have other weapons that you play? Like, are you on a team? Do you have a role on that team? Anything like that?
I'm not on a team. This is my first Splatoon game.
Okay.
At all. So like, still very new to everything so far. Like, yeah, I still don't really like. I'm leaning towards dualies as a main weapon overall so far. Don't actually have like a. It's not definitive, but they just felt the most interesting.
Yeah.
In general, probably leaning towards frontliner role of some kind because I just like heavy movement, interactivity kind of things. And also, I feel like when I'm playing backline or sniper classes, I fall into the fallacy of thinking I'm doing more than I am. Just like, I feel
Yeah,
like it's a common sniper trope. Where it's just like,
one of
I'm
the-
just gonna not do that.
Right. One of the big challenges of being a backliner is like it's easy to stay safe if you know what you're doing. It's not as easy to stay safe and still have an impact on the game.
Yeah, that's actually something I'm like trying to get a bit more balanced on, even frontlining now. Where it's just like, because when I started playing, like, I used to play a decent amount of Overwatch, and I was on a team for that for a bit. So like my number one priority when I started Splatoon, because I felt decently similar, is just like make sure I just don't die, and just like passively existing will like supply like more support than anyone at like B or C ranks will do by just like not being dead. That worked for the most part, but now I'm like trying to find a better balance of like active participation and making plays and more intensive pushes and higher risk scenarios.
I'm glad you brought up Overwatch because you're literally playing Tracer.
Yeah, I actually was in Overwatch. I was actually on my team. I was the main support role, so I was like I was mostly making like what's the word I'm looking for? But in terms of comms, I was making like I was the
you were shot calling.
main like shot. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I liked Tracer a lot though. I just was a Lucio main because that was even more movement intensive than Tracer.
Nice. All right. So you're looking for the hard weapons. That's what you're trying to play.
Basically. It's also
Nice.
I think it's also the fighting game in me that are just
Yeah,
like,
that'll do it. So Tetras and Chargers are both, I think, really good fits for what you're looking for different reasons. Tetras, there's an argument about what the most aim-intensive weapon in the game is, and both Tetras and Chargers are in the conversation. There are other
very
weapons
different
that
kinds
where
of
like
aim.
you are punished more for missing shots. So like, on something like a blaster, like you need to hit shots or else, but the shots are easier to hit. You just get fewer of them. Like if you do mess up, you don't have as much time. Same deal with like a slosher. With Tetras, the trick with them is that their DPS is actually pretty crummy compared to other frontline weapons. Like,
yeah, it takes a full 4 hits to kill.
right. Takes a full 4 hits, and those 4 hits are not coming out that quickly compared to some other weapons. So, like, my strategy as a splatter shot playing against a Tetras is I just make sure I can stay in range. If I can't stay in range, then I need to disengage, obviously. But as long as I can stay in range, I just hold forward at them because I splat faster than they do.
Hold
they
forward.
have
If I'm stuck in a roll, you're just kind of winning that if I don't aim better.
Right, like they have to make me miss in order to beat me. I just out DPS them otherwise. And the one thing that you have going for you in that sort of situation is something that's unique to the Tetradualies, which is that when they dodge roll, you actually fire shots in the middle of the roll instead of at the end of the roll. Every other dualies, they wait until they're all the way through the somersault and then they start firing. But the tetras, you get, I think, 2 shots in between, like, start of roll and end of roll. And being able to hit those shots is what makes them a little bit more viable at a higher level. Players who can consistently hit those shots drastically decrease their kill times. And if they can do that, during those first few moments where they're actually making their opponents miss, now it becomes a competitive weapon. But being able to do that is really mechanically intensive. It takes a lot of practice, and typically, if you're going to see a Tetris player at high level, they one-trick those Tetras. That is the only thing that they play, which historically that's made them a little bit of a liability in terms of team comp, because in Splatoon 2 it was worse because it had Splashdown. Splashdown's crap. At high level, you're going to get shot out of it 75% of the time for trying. In this game, we have Reef Slider.
Had armor. I haven't actually seen anyone use it in game yet, though. I've only used it in the story mode.
Yeah, Splashdown is not in Splatoon 3 as a multiplayer game.
Oh, it's literally only in the story mode.
It is only in the story mode. That's correct.
Interesting.
There are no weapons that actually have it, and for that reason, that it was just not viable.
Gotcha.
I feel like they literally could have made it invincible, and that wouldn't have been a problem.
It felt like it was. I mean, it's in the story mode, it is, but like, I feel like it would have been totally fine in that case.
Right, like, because there were obviously, people all the way up through S+ who could not shoot down splashdowns, and it still wasn't overpowered even at those levels of play because you can just swim away from it. It's pretty telegraphed. So I always thought, why not just make the whole thing invincible? Just make it an actual panic special, and at least then it's going to do something for someone, right? It's like, still not as valuable as Baller, because Baller at least lets you run away after you've popped the special. Like, if there's a charger watching your splashdown, you're still dead, even on landing. But at least, that would do something for it. Anyway, in this game it has Reef Slider, which is fine. It's a solid choice. It's, not useless, but it's also not meta-defining. It's not something that's going to make or break a game. It might make or break a play if you find a good opportunity for it, but it's kind of situational. So what you're getting from a Tetris player is the main weapon, and that's and a little bit of information scouting with auto bombs. And I do think auto bombs are better in this game than they were in Splatoon 2. I think the information that you can collect is really important, and because the game is so much more cramped in terms of map design right now, watching the auto bomb start moving in a certain direction, you kind of know where someone is a lot better than you could in Splatoon 2, where it was a little bit more open. So that's my lowdown on the Tetras. Absolutely a weapon that you can main, but if you're going to go for it, especially at top level, you want to actually main it, and you want to just become so godlike on it that it doesn't matter that you don't have quite the optimal special. It doesn't matter that your weapon doesn't paint as much and your team is going to have to compensate for that. You just are too much of an impact on the map in terms of map pressure, in terms of kill pressure. They have to deal with you. They have to devote excessive numbers of resources to dealing with you, and that frees up your team to do other things. That's the impact that a good Tetra player has. We actually saw that in, and this is obviously not at a top competitive level or anything, but we saw that in the VOD review of Alpharad's tournament, where Scott Falco was having that kind of an impact on the game, on the Tetra dualies. So that's kind of where you would be positioning yourself as a Tetris player.
It's an Alpharad tournament?
Yeah, he had a 5K prize pool and brought in a whole bunch of influencers. Void from the Smash community was there, Scott Falco, Failboat, whole bunch of Alpharad familiars, Ouija, for example, Adriana Figueroa.
Gotcha. I'm really bad at watching streams, so I guess that's how that'll probably show up on his YouTube content later, but I just didn't know that was a thing. That's neat.
Yeah, maybe. I just saw it on Twitter randomly, and I was like, oh, hey, I'm watching this. And then, oh, hey, I'm VOD reviewing this.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun because you get a really wide variety of skill levels. There's Scott Falco, who's been playing a whole bunch of Splatoon 2, who's probably at least S+, probably X rank or something. And then you've got people who have literally started playing that day, all in the same tournament.
Yeah.
So it's a really kind of interesting who's who of the different skill levels of play. Then chargers are very mechanically intensive, specifically for aim. Occasionally, you might want to like be hitting jump shots or snapping to people, but overall, it's just you're only having an impact if you are able to hit shots. And I say able to hit shots because at high level, you still won't hit shots because people just won't peek you. But
Yeah.
you exert enough zoning pressure by being able to hit shots, by basically through your gameplay showing the other team, no, you cannot peek me. You will get punished for that. And
The Widowmaker effect.
right, as long as you can have that exact sort of intimidation pressure on the other team, it forces them to play in a very specific way, and that's something your team can capitalize on.
Yeah.
But one of the dangers with Charger is that you, for example, if you go to the opposite side of the map as the rest of your team is going, what happens is the other team takes the 4v3 against your team, and now you don't have an angle, and it takes you too long to get that angle. And you don't
You're
have
exerting
like,
pressure in a zone that doesn't matter.
right. It's not like you have the grappling hook that Widowmaker has that lets you reposition to another location quickly. You are just kind of locked onto being on the left side of the map if, you push there. So you need to, I mean, it's important to be rotating positions anyway, just so that, then this is just a sniper thing in general, like across all games and probably real life too. You take a shot and then you relocate. You like don't leave your position known to the enemy team for too long. You don't give them time to adapt to where you are. But those players I find tend to be extremely, extremely calm individuals, like very weirdly calm. And that steadiness helps them be incredibly consistent. So that's kind of just a personality profile. It's a really weird pattern that I've seen over and over again.
Yeah, I think I definitely lean more heavily into the frontline weapons so far, at least.
Gotcha.
I probably should try more just like regular shooters, but I just like I need to practice more movement first. I think one time in this game I substrafe because I'm just like trying to learn how that I like recently learned that's a thing, figuring out how to implement and test it and use it. Currently heavily reliant on just dodge rolls instead.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
I have to figure out more movement for using shooters that don't have dodge rolls.
It is a lot less of a thing for dualies because, like you said, you can dodge roll. It's also less of a thing in this game because squid rolling often has advantages. Like, if you're anywhere near combat and you're worried that someone might be attacking you, a squid roll is usually the better play because then you have the opportunity to armor through something. But squid rolling is considerably slower. I actually measured it a couple of times. I don't know if you saw on a TikTok, but I think it's actually slower than walking to squid roll, or at least pretty close to the same speed. Because I was squid rolling onto a grate that you have to walk across on Eeltail, and I got across at exactly the same time if I just walked across as if I started by squid rolling. So
it looked like it was slower if you were trying to go from a straight line to a straight line than just continuing into a walk. It's like if you were coming from a 90 degree, then probably faster. But like, yeah.
Because like if you could squid roll forward, then I think the squid roll forward would be slightly faster. But because you have to deviate the way that you do to get the squid roll off, I think that's a little slower. So it's less of a thing with dualies to want to substrafe, but there are definitely still some opportunities to. For example, if you don't want to be committing to a dodge roll yet, but you have to like dodge a bomb, that's a great time to do it. You could also squid roll away from that, but also if you're trying to take really tight corners, substrafing is still the best way to do that, the fastest way to do that, because squid rolling, you have a set distance that you're going to travel at, and if you want to cancel it, you have to like dodge roll out of it or shoot or something, which you won't necessarily want to do every time. So substrafing is still a good idea there. I think it's definitely more situational in this game than it was in Splatoon 2. Again, because squid rolling exists.
Squid roll exists, yeah. You have a way to do sharp turns, at least if you're doing just one of them, pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. And the chances that you're going to need to like do two really sharp turns are that's a pretty niche situation. Okay, so let's actually get on with the VOD review here.
Yep.
Somebody asked in chat, is it worth to get Splatoon 2 for ranked purposes? I want to get better, but I keep seeing ranked stuff on Splatoon 3, not 2. Right now, the vast majority of the competitive community is switching over to 3, and it doesn't seem like that's going to change anytime soon. There was one suggestion that we go back, but I don't think the game is. We've had enough time with it yet. I don't think Nintendo has had enough time to fix up the netcode and things like that yet. Splatoon 2, frankly, released in a far worse state balance-wise than this game has. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're too enamored with this game that we're going to move on. So you don't need to go to Splatoon 2. And another thing I've heard about Splatoon 2 is that now it is significantly easier to rank up because a lot of the top players and competitive players have moved on to Splatoon 3 and are playing there instead. So of the population of players remaining, they're generally pretty much weaker players than on the whole. So let's get started here. We're watching Tetra Dualies.
On rank-wise, this is at A-.
Gotcha. I wish that meant something. I really do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because the problem right now is that, as far as I'm aware, matchmaking is actually independent of that letter.
Interesting.
It's basically a measure of how much you've played ranked.
That's what it's felt like. It felt like it just keeps going up for the most part.
Yeah, like there have definitely been ranks where it started to get harder for me, but the thing is, I was running into Division 2 in Ludi competitive players on day 1 in B-. Like,
Same.
Compared to the experience of getting out of B-, it's probably easier now that I'm in S+. And then, 11 days have passed or whatever it is. Because...
Yeah, the rank up games from B to A were like the hardest games I've had, but then after that it's moved out.
Yeah, and that's just a factor of you no longer have top 500 players in the low ranks. They have shifted their way out. They've sorted themselves. That I knew people, who were getting paired against Kyo in their very first matches. I played matches against Bran, against Arashi, all these top players. It's like, this guy is literally on Starburst. Why am I being punished for losing to him in A rank? So, anyway, right now, I think that you can learn from playing ranked pretty well because it is still Glicko 2 that is determining your matchmaking to a degree. Obviously, there are still going to be some players who are newer and some players who are more experienced being put in the same lobbies, but on the whole, on average, the teams should actually be fairly even. I do trust in Glicko 2 as a matchmaking system, and I have a whole video on why that is. That is still the math underlying this system, even though the way that it's implemented is different. And so it will be putting you in matches that are pretty close to your skill level. This is a great way to rank up, and I recommend playing Splatoon 3 instead of playing Splatoon 2, simply because there are new specials to adapt to, new weapons to adapt to, new mechanics, new maps. Even the old maps are redesigned in significant ways, so you're going to learn more about Splatoon 3 by playing Splatoon 3. Okay. So generally, especially as a Slayer weapon, or, somebody who's trying to frontline, somebody who's trying to be a significant impact on enemy positioning, I'm trying to position not directly on top of my team, but not too far away from them either. So I'm not trying to be making hard flanks that take, 5 to 6 seconds to set up and my team dies in the meantime. But I'm also not trying to stand on top of my teammates because right now, if you were to follow Naku and Gracie on the right-hand side here, and the blob puts a good line down right on top of them, they could just get their feet painted and zeroed out, or the Dapples could show up and shoot in the same direction and accidentally get 2 because that weapon just has an insane fire rate. So you don't want to be right on top of them. I like that you're kind of keeping your distance here. Now up here, I guess what you're able to do with dualies is use the dodge roll to descend faster, which can throw people off sometimes. But generally, as a frontliner, high ground isn't my first thought. Reason being, you don't have the range to be able to exploit the advantages of it, which are that you can see over cover. that you have a little bit of a range advantage. Like those things, say the Jet Squelcher on the other team or a Charger or something, they can abuse the heck out of those. But for you as Tetras, it lets you paint maybe like half to a third of the zone from here. And if the opponents are pushed that far in, that's a pretty aggressive play from them. So usually I prefer low ground. And trying to find some cover and trying to find an off angle. So I might go to this cover on the left and see if I can get around on the left-hand side. It's more of a thing I would do probably if the water were down. And I might like try to be taking the cover over on the top right corner here. I'm generally trying to set myself up in a place where I have cover, so like this Jet Squelcher can't just laser me. But I'm also close enough to the enemy team that I'm threatening and I can move forward. And when I move forward, it's relatively unpredictable. They're not going to see me falling down from above where I have basically no movement options.
Yeah, I was just kind of autopiloting that way at first, just because it seemed like the shortest path. But then I was like, oh wait, I shouldn't be fully grouped like you're saying.
A lot happens there. So your teammates get 2, which is sick. And so then we start painting for zone. As soon as I see this player here, what I'm probably thinking to do is, okay, there are only 2 of them left, and this one is distracted. If I take the left-hand side around the zone and cut off their escape here, they definitely go down. And worst case scenario, there's one other player right here. I'm pretty sure this is the Dapple Doodlies. If you find the other player here, it's an arrow spray. They're not a scary player. Your weapon outranges them and also has a faster kill time. Most of the time, if it hits all of its shots, it's faster than yours. But doing that means it has to be breathing on you. So you just roll backwards once, and you probably have a faster kill time than it does. So I would probably sweep around the left-hand side and try to cut off this player's escape. One of the advantages that your weapon has that is significantly better in this game now, for reasons I'll explain in a second, is that you're a lot less dependent on having ink to be able to move, because you can dodge roll through enemy ink if you need to. You don't need to stop, paint, and then swim. You can just dodge roll across, and you're across. So moving into like the purple ink in the corner over here isn't necessarily the worst thing, and you probably get this pick a lot more consistently that way. Another reason that moving through enemy ink is better in this game is that in Splatoon 2, there was an ability called main power up that gave a weapon damage up in some cases. And that damage up could make it so that a weapon could hit damage combos that got to 99.9. So because you take a slight amount of damage when you step on enemy ink, that often reduced their time to kill by a shot. Like the Bamboozler went from a 2-shot to a sometimes 1-shot. The Pro went from a 3-shot to a sometimes 2-shot. And the Doolies were the biggest targets of that because they spent so long on enemy ink that they were almost always vulnerable to it if they were taking engagements fast. Because you, as a Tetris player now, don't have to worry about that, rolling through enemy ink to take engagements is less risky than it used to be. So right now, because you're engaging on this side, on the right side, all this player in front of you has to do is back up. They have an escape route. If you were to come around the left-hand side, you isolate them in that corner, and they're stuck closer to your team. And see now, that because they got some support from their teammate, they actually get away and rotate over to the left, and they're able to stop your teammate here. Running out of ink there... Running out of ink is something that you will kind of subconsciously become accustomed to not doing. You will just kind of get better at not having that happen over time. And eventually you'll kind of have this sense like, okay, I have rolled this many times. I have shot this many times. I've thrown a bomb and then done this. I'm starting to get worried about my ink. And that's sort of how that'll work. But for the time being... Make sure it's a habit that as soon as you're done shooting, as soon as like you are not engaging or painting, you are refilling your ink. You're just getting back into squid form. It has a lot of advantages besides that. There's stealth, there's faster movement. But, you know, making sure you have the ink tank that you need to take fights when you have to is also important. Okay. So let's back up for a second, because right now, you know, in this situation, it's 4v2. And so this is a place where you really want to be pushing your advantage. Like, right now, even though you look up at and you see this is 3v2, this is actually 3v1. Because this player is still spawning in. So what you probably want to be doing is you only have a few more seconds, so if you don't get it quickly, then you need to back up, but you want to see if you can rush this player down and get a stagger going. Your blob is not going to do that for you. Your brush might try to help you with that. No, they're sharking. Yeah, but because we kind of let them have this escape route this whole time, they're able to just kind of use that as a home base. We're not pushing them away from the zone, and so we're not able to cap it. And since we're not able to cap it, we're giving them time to spawn back in. We want to sever their access to the zone faster than this so that we can take advantage of the numbers advantage we've won and get control of the zone and start actually trying to lock them out.
Yeah, and this all kind of stems from me pushing right instead of left in that one section.
Yep. And obviously there are other things that your teammates could have done to help that out. But here, you do a really good job of making up for that by severing that by force, and your teammates follow up with a beautifully timed special, and so that's an awesome play that you just made. There's really not a lot of counterplay to them, to like you doing it from that far out. If someone already had a Trizuka popped, for example, and saw you going that way, they could like launch that at you. If there were a charger, then going in that deep on their side of the zone would be dangerous. But at the moment, they're not exerting any pressure over that part of the zone, and you have a special that helps you close distance from there and also cut off their escape route on the way. So even if you go in there, they dodge it and completely, you know, turn around and demolish you. Now they're turning their backs to your teammates. And one of the reasons that I really like this whale from your brush is that they are following up on the aggression that you're putting out there. Now from here, what you want to be doing, because they're 3 down, so there's not much that's going to stop you, just an arrow spray from...
No need to back.
Right. There's no need to be on the zone. Your goal as a frontliner is to exert zone control that prevents them from playing the objective. Let me... Shoot, I don't have a picture of Mahi Mahi. Maybe there's one on Sendu. Here, let me see if Sendu has Splatoon 1 maps or something. If not, I can just go and pick a different one. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Okay. Let's just pick another map that's...
That drop down is there?
Yeah, I'm clicking the drop down. You can't see it's on your screen. But, let's go with, like... What's another one that's kind of similar to this? Let's go with Inkblot Art Academy. We'll do top down from here. So let me make sure that this is centered well on screen. We can zoom in some more. Huh, it's still just giving the whole window. That's annoying. Well, at least it's zoomed in a little bit more than that. Okay. So let's say this is your side, so this is your side, and then this is the opponent's side. So you've got control of zone. Now, the way that you win the game is if the opponents are not able to paint this enough that you stop scoring. So your objective is to stop them from painting the zone. Well, then where can they paint the zone from becomes the question, because that is the area that you need to keep them away from. So ultimately it ends up being something like this. So that's a little bit, asymmetrical and stuff. But that's basically the area that if they don't get into this, then you are going to win the game. Now, you don't need to worry about them coming from this direction, because in order to get here, they first have to advance through this zone somehow. They need to do something like this. And so if you're controlling, this part of the zone here, they have no way of getting there. So that's, in the turf war video I put out, this is passive control. You have passive control over this area. It's not like anybody's over there exactly. You probably have some paint there, but you don't need to worry about that. So what do you need to worry about? You need to worry about where they can come out from spawn. So on this map, you need to worry about this. You need to worry about this sort of thing. And maybe them peeling off and doing this. Those are basically the angles that you want to cut off as a frontliner. Well, if you're here, for example, you can cut off 2 of those. And if nobody comes over here, then you're able to rotate up and cut off this one instead. So that's a pretty good place to take. If instead you want to cover the right side, then you can maybe shark under here. And that way you see somebody who comes this way, and you can rotate to stop someone over this way. You could just go straight up onto their plat. And eventually the end goal is to actually end up right here if you're really trying to lock them out hard, because that stops all of those options. So that's the kind of thinking that you want to be doing about where you want to position on these maps. It's where do I need to go in order to stop them from reaching the zone? And right now you're rotating back into an area where your team already has passive control. You want to be actually moving up and getting a spawn lock going here. And you are... Mm-hmm.
Should I have gone up to that platform there, I guess, to the right now, and taken that and actually been able to push into their spawn in that direction?
Right, jump off the right box and get into their spawn. Yep. That's a really, really good sharking spot because they have to drop over a ledge. And if you're hiding under that ledge, it can be very hard to see you, and they just drop right on top of you, and you're like, oh, hey, I see you, and your back is turned to me. This is fun. I get to go pew-pew. And you stop them from ever getting out to one of those snipe points or anything like that. Now, because, this is a very short map, a lot of the time what'll happen is you win a fight, but then by the time you get that far forward, opposing players have already spawned back in. And you need to be careful about that. So what you might want to do is, and what you always did on Inkblot, so we'll go back to here. On Inkblot, getting up onto their plat doesn't give you a lot of cover. There's not a lot you can hide behind. There's not a lot of sharking you can do. So what a lot of the time you'd see a custom dually squelchers or a tetras or something try to do is get to one of those few places where they did have cover, get a pick or something, but then immediately dodge roll down and hide in these corners as soon as they needed to dip out of there. So they'd kind of rotate up to the plat, threaten the plat, have some kind of impact on plat, but then use their mobility to get back out and kind of rotate on this cycle to draw enemy aggro so that they could keep themselves safe while still applying that kind of pressure. And I think a very similar thing could work on Mahi, where you get right up to the edge here, right up against the edge. Because if you drop onto the unpaintable turf, for other weapons, they don't want to be there because they can't have paint there. But you can dodge roll on those. So you have better movement than any other weapon will on that location as you drop off the ledge. So dropping off there isn't necessarily a bad thing. And if you ever need to hit the panic button, you can always just dodge roll straight down. You dodge roll in the air and you fall quicker. So that gets you down lickety-split. And now you're behind cover, you're sharking under a ledge again, which is where they don't want to drop. You haven't lost that much of an advantage, and you've also forced them to spend time on focusing on you on their plat instead of focusing on you on the zone where they could potentially paint it and fight you at the same time. Your goal right now is to maintain the status quo. It's not necessarily to get picks, although getting picks helps if you can do it safely. But your job is to make it so that this timer ticks down without being interfered with. So if that means you're just wasting their time and you don't get a single splat, but you keep them off the zone, you're winning the game.
Yeah, just providing area control and just making it harder to get in.
Right. So, like, in front of their tacticooler is probably where you want to be. You've even got a bloblobber who is pushed up way further than you here and is painting up in front of you, so you have support if you were to go in that far. I can definitely understand, if your whole team is looking right, you might think, wait, are they going to try and come left? And that might be a concern. But the counterpoint to that is, in the time that you've spent so far on the zone here, you could have already gotten into their base and over to the left to cut that option off so that they cover the right and you cover the left, but you're further up and actually on this ledge over here. Generally, if you see a weapon like a bloblobber or anything longer range, Jet Squelcher, Charger, or Heavy Splatling, if you see one of those anchor weapons or pseudo-anchor weapons pushed further ahead of you, chances are you're too far back as a frontliner. It's not their job to be creating that space for your team. It's your job to be creating that space for them to move forward.
Gotcha.
So if they think it's safe to be forward, you're behind the curve of the push. Now, that said, that depends on them making a wise decision about being pushed that far forward. If you notice that your Charger is just feeding by standing out in mid or something when they definitely shouldn't be, obviously then, don't push out in front of that because you're just going to make the same mistake they do. But
so I guess
a lot of the
it comes down to the question. It comes down to the question of, like, does it look like my team is in a spot that I could be?
Right.
Like, yeah.
And, like, one of the things that I talk about in the Turf War video is that if you're painting an area that you already control, chances are a lot of that paint is going to be redundant. A lot of that paint is just going to go on top of area that's already painted. And you don't get special charge for that. You also don't gain any extra map control for that. Your job is to be gaining more map control. It's not to, like, turf just a tiny little bit more. It's to go and, like, push your team further forward on the map in general. It's to take your team from having control of this to having control of this to having control of this. And, that theoretically these two lines exist, but in practice these will never happen because you will knock out in splat zones before you ever reach them. So really you're getting to about this, like, 60 to 75% mark in splat zones, and you're just kind of holding there. Because otherwise you get bowled over by a special push and can't retreat because they have uncontestable high ground. Anyway. So, now that you're back here, I think the right call was to pay attention to left, although there's someone on the top left that I think you didn't see on your screen.
I did not.
Little flashes of the wrong color ink like that. Train yourself to see those really, really, really well. Because little bits of information like that can make the difference between winning and losing an engagement. In this case, Gracie covers you really well. They take that player out. But now we see the problem of not having pushed up before. The enemy team is already at the zone. They're in that hot zone around it where they can paint the zone. Whereas if you had been up here, you would have been stopping them from getting to this position. Now the blob is hitting stuff on zone. Now these players have pushed in on right and your teammates have been forced back because they didn't have to deal with you further forward and they were able to just kind of walk in.
I hate Bloblobber. That's on me, but ow.
Yeah, Bloblobber, it is a little bit annoying as a Tetris player because you only have so many opportunities to dodge. Squid rolling through the line is a really good idea because chances are you're only going to get hit with one blob and it's going to tank the 30 damage that blob does. So you kind of treat it like sort of like a whale 5.1 as long as you have the ink to do it. But the blob is a really, really slow time to kill if you're moving laterally to it. If you're moving around it in a circle. So try to take advantage of that to make sure that it doesn't, like, lock you down or anything. But also, you got to respect its range. It just hits really, really far away, and it paints a lot. So it's definitely annoying, but I think of it more as like a stage hazard a lot of the time than I do like an opposing player, just because their ability to control the zone around them is very slow and very situational. Like, if you get right on top of them, you delete that thing. So
also, what's that black forward back arrow on his gear? I've not seen that one.
This thing?
Yeah.
That is called stealth jump. That makes it so that when you super jump to a teammate, the arrow that would normally give you away becomes transparent if you are too far away from it. It becomes invisible. So the closer you get to it, it literally is just like an opacity scaler. It's just like increases in visibility the closer you get. So it's not completely invisible like it was in Splatoon 1 where it was broken. But it does really good things for a frontline weapon because it can let them get back into a fight faster and start applying that map pressure again. Well, because a lot of the time they're going to be dying and jumping back in. If they get more value out of that than a backline weapon does, who should only be dying, a couple times in a match. Right now, everyone's gear is going to be random. Like, I'm not going to judge them for running that gear. They're probably just farming chunks like the rest of us. And that just happens to be the gear that they have that they're able to do that with. You stayed there in the Inkstorm for a little while, and granted it ended, but Inkstorms, you want to, like, be in them for a purpose, because you need to be out of them in a certain amount of time. You don't want to just take random chip damage.
This is me playing a little too safe, I think, because coming back to that, we're just like, I don't know where to engage without dying here.
Right.
So I just keep scanning.
That is a very common thing to see early on, simply because, like, recognition of the game state and knowing what you can and can't do, it takes some experience. So I don't blame you for being in this position at all. You see, like, X-rank competitive players play like this, where they're just kind of like, run over here, paint a couple spots here, and then be like, unsafe, move. Run over here and paint a couple spots here, and they're not actually... The problem with that play style is that you're not actually painting for special. Painting for special is what you want to be doing here. Just paint for special from a safe location. Wait for that Clash Blaster to get back up. Because right now you're in a 3v4. You don't want to engage, and you recognize you don't want to engage. So what can you do in the meantime that will make it so you have a better fight opportunity when that happens? You paint for special.
Would it be worth going to that island on the left, or is that way too far out of the way?
So the island on the left is better when the water is down, because it gives you more opportunities to get into mid. You actually, I believe, cannot safely jump from this island over to the other side. I think it's impossible to do that. So if you get over here, you're kind of stuck. That's a dead end unless you're like an E-leader and you don't care about that. You do have to watch out for E-leaders over here, though. That place is scary. Anyway, what you probably want to be doing is... You see there's a lot of purple in front of you. And what I would do is try and take a position, like, on the ledge, but a little bit further back from it, so I'm not just going to get insta-deleted by dapples underneath. And I'm going to be able to, like, watch out for the blob-blobber. And maybe paint over the edge to paint some purple ink. And since they're going to keep refreshing that ink, they're going to keep painting over what you paint. They're just kind of feeding you free special charge. There's also areas of your base that are definitely not painted right now. Like, I would definitely be painting all of this up. Maybe painting these walls might help too, just so that your teammates can get up and over them faster and you can do the same. But get to your reef slider, and by the time you're there, it's probably a pretty good time to go in, and your team is probably going to have a little bit more of an advantage to go in with. But, like... Let's back up for just a second. So you're here. There's a whole bunch of area to your back right that you could be painting. You could be painting the left-hand side of spawn here. It's like I'm looking at your special gauge, and it's not going up by that much over time. Dropping down here is very risky, especially since your teammate behind you just went down. Again, your game plan here is you don't care whether they take lead. In Splat Zones, lead is usually not that important, especially this early on in the game. You've only been out there for a minute, and the lead that they're getting is going to be like 10 or 20 points remaining or something. You don't need to go in yet. You really only need to worry about lead, especially at a competitive level, once you get down into like 15 points remaining or so. That's when it's like, okay, lead probably is kind of important at this point. But let's think about, like, because a tick on the timer is less than a second. It goes faster than seconds. It's like 1.5 to 2, somewhere in between those per second. So if you look at your score right now, let's say that they get a lead of 60. So you need 4 plus 28 ticks, so 32 ticks. That just means you need to hold for like
10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah, like 15 to 20 seconds, I think it is. So that is, you win one fight, you cap the zone, they respawn, and you hold them off for like 4 seconds. That's really easy to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So you don't care about them necessarily getting lead just yet. What you care about is making sure that you don't stagger as a team. Have you seen my YouTube videos, specifically the S Plus video?
I think I haven't gotten to that one yet. I've been working my way through the rest of them. I think I've seen the S one, or part of the S one so far.
Gotcha. So in the S Plus video, I talk about a concept I call the feed stagger loop.
Familiar with it from Overwatch.
Gotcha. So right now, you have one down, so you're in a 3v4.
Yep.
If another player goes down, you're still in a 3v4 even after they respawn. And so you need to not go in one at a time. You need to go in as a team. And I mean, you know about coordinating ultimates from Overwatch. Like, you know that you're popping like all those at once and all going in at the same time. You're diving. So that's kind of what you want to be setting up here. And the nice thing about, like, in solo queue, while you can't necessarily control if your teammate goes down here, you can wait until they come back up. And
I don't think I'd registered that they were, and I think my idea was that I was getting like a 2v2 here. Turns out, 1, there were 3 of them, and 2, he died as I was like about to make this jump. I'd like committed to it here, and then he dies.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing here is my teammate is retreating, and they're behind me at the moment.
I didn't pay attention to that enough.
And this whole area here is painted purple, so I know that they're definitely not here. Gotcha. So...
yeah, I didn't keep good vision on that properly.
Ooh, that was so close. That was so close to being well played. Like, because despite the fact that you're in this 1v2, you scare the crap out of the Dapples because they have no range, and so they have to run away. And now it's just you and a Jet Squelcher, and a Jet Squelcher is a really, really slow time to kill. So you actually almost pull this off. If you just get behind this cover right here, the Jet can't hit you, and now they're scared of this corner.
I think that's why I went left, to try to get in that sight line, not there, but slightly further back. And that's why I do this roll, to have that exact sight line. But it's
like, you just barely slide off. Like, I don't blame you for that at all.
Because, yeah, I wanted that cover as my sight line. But it just fell in the water instead.
Alright. So your brush player did go down, but they have managed to somehow trade the Dapples. At this point, your team is pretty far forward here, and so I would probably be trying to get an off angle with them. I think a good idea would be getting to the left side of this snipe here, and trying to use that for cover as you push into mid, using your teammates' pressure at the same time. So I think if you go a little bit faster and pinch in, you're probably there to trade this guy back, even if he gets your teammate cleanly. I like this push. I like this push. Your teammate... Nice, okay. It looks like your teammate doesn't cover the angle that they need to here. Maybe they ran out of ink or something. That's possible. But what they should be doing here, and the way that you win this fight quickly enough that you don't just get flanked by the enemy team, is the Bloblobber keeps firing at the left side, and you keep firing at the right side, and they have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But you end up getting them cleanly, and what the other team could have done here, because the Bloblobber didn't keep firing there, is they could have pushed you from this side and traded back for this player. So you're wise to be like rolling away from them there, but if they're faster on that and have literally any frontline weapons, then they're going to be able to clean that up. I think you didn't notice that there was like a ledge here to hit. You thought you were like straight lining to them, but you hit this and just kind of stopped there. While
I wasn't sure how that would interact, so it was kind of a test.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I wasn't sure if it would go over or if it would ride it. Found out.
Yeah, it'll probably just stop there. So yeah, straight lining like parallel to it would get you further, even though they'd be able to dodge it easier. Ooh, that was a little scary. Let's see what happens here. So again, On the push,
Stacked.
we're taking the same line as the teammates, so they just have to look in one place and shoot in one place. Ends up working out as a 1-for-1 trade. There was a player
I didn't notice that player. It just
Yeah.
somehow just completely escaped me. Yeah. Pretty
Yeah,
bad.
so we're looking at the bottom right here, chat. At this, I think it's the aerospray.
Yep.
Yep.
And then I just didn't
Yeah,
see
you,
it.
you even fire shots in that direction, which
Like, no one's there.
will alert them to the fact that you're here. Like I was scared for a second afterwards. Like, oh wait, they just fired shots, and when you fire shots at someone, it makes a special whizzing sound like past their head or something, to like
I did
alert
not
them.
notice that.
It's like a subtle sound design cue that lets you know, oh shoot, I need to pay attention to something.
I'm gonna try to listen to that. Listen for that next time.
So they are extra alerted to your presence here, and I guess they're just scared to challenge you or something, but they definitely could have just done something with it. They're probably waiting to reef slider. You hit a good number of shots there.
I think I hit 3.
Yeah, there you go. So you got to be really careful right now because your back is turned and you're also in Inkstorm.
Yep.
And so you get behind cover. And I would spend some time healing here too. When you drop into your ink and squid form, you heal. And accelerating healing is really important. It's just a habit you want to get into, and you probably want to do that as fast as possible once you get behind cover. Just at higher levels, when players know they have an advantage over you and they start pursuing you more consistently, they start being more sticky. Any opportunity that you have to heal is going to be important.
I think I do that in a minute, but I was just shooting for a little too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also get hit in between. Like
Yeah.
if you were at a point where you had enough damage that could splat you, you wouldn't have healed in time to be able to survive it.
Yeah, I just have to make that decision faster.
So while you are marked right now, and so they know you're here, they don't respond well to it. So seeing how they're reacting, this is a good play. But at higher levels, what'll happen is they'll spot you and immediately start putting zone pressure around this side of the map to make sure you don't do exactly what you do right here.
Actually, when I still have a little bit of damage, so I'd probably die for that, realistically.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. What needed to happen was the jet squelcher needed to focus you here. I think that's the jet right there. It might actually be the aerospray. It's hard to say. Oh yeah, because this is the jet. Okay. So actually nobody really had the range to do anything, but what the aerospray probably could have done is throw a fizzy bomb. So that's a good pick. I like this. The only thing that's going to be a danger to you is the bloblobber right now. Ooh, almost. I'm actually surprised that didn't go your way.
Tried to take the tracer, get behind them strategy.
Right, like, crossing them up is really good in Splatoon 2. Splatoon as well, I should say.
Splatoon as well.
Yes. I've heard it called camera fighting, and it forces you to do a 180 when all you have to do to force them to do a 180 is take like one step because you're right on top of them. So that's kind of the idea. But it looks like what happened here was they did enough damage while they were facing you to splat you before you got behind them. So you get the aim on a little faster, that'll work. Or another idea here is just keep your distance. Like,
I also wanted that to be a squid roll, and then it just wasn't, which was kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
Didn't have the momentum I thought I did.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can totally see that play working out for you. I don't dislike that you took it. You were away from the ink vac, so it wasn't going to save them. They're an arrow spray.
No, I know what happened, so it's so sad. Got that.
And that is the danger of dropping off a ledge. This entire time right now, unless you dodge roll, you cannot move. And so they can... That's a really good shot on their part. They can project where you're going to land, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're 2 down. Team should be able to just take zone for free here. They get another one. Well, your brush trades.
Throwing an Inkstorm and I'm not paying attention to it again.
Yeah. What the thing that is a trigger in my head to pay attention to it is seeing the circle of enemy ink moving. This little outline here. That's what I train myself to respond to. That's the trigger for me to react defensively. But also this, this little like whip kind of sound and the screen starting to fill up with ink splotches on the side. Those are also cues that show that you're taking damage, and those are things that you should definitely, have this subconscious reaction to.
I think until this call, I also just don't respect Inkstorm very much. I'm like, it's chip damage, who cares? But I guess I shouldn't think that. I should care more.
The issue right now is if you get hit with like a single hit of a fizzy bomb, you die.
Okay, yeah. Respect Inkstorm. There's so much
in Overwatch, like even Tracer has 150 HP. In Splatoon, everybody has 100.
Yep.
It is there are no Roadhogs. There are no Reinhardts except for the Tentebrella kind of is, but it's like a little emaciated Tracer behind the wall. Like
yeah, in Overwatch, people even call chip damage trash damage. Like it just doesn't do anything and it feeds their support ults. So like I'm still a little bit in that mindset where it's like chip damage is garbage, who cares? But that's not the case here.
The one thing that you do have is health regen. You don't need a Mercy to fly over to you to be able to fix you. You just need to drop into ink for a second. So that's you have like better sustain, just worse HP overall.
Yeah.
But it's sustain that you have to like manually trigger. So you have to be of the mindset to be continuously doing that. What were you saying?
I was like, why am I rolling here? I don't seem to be getting value out of it. Kind of happening.
Yeah, rolling is definitely like a I am in combat sort of thing. Because you're going to paint better because you have dual reticle and the paint is flying in a wider spray. And anything that's inaccurate in this game, the trade-off is that it paints better because the shots are going to fly in more different places for aiming the reticle in the same place. So you're not going to paint as well when you have turret mode and you're committed to the movement. So the reason to do it is for the time to kill and there's nobody you're fighting. I like that response to the ink vac because this is a counter to ink vac. However, I don't think you knew exactly where they were. Actually, no, you did. You saw them there, but they got splatted before you got there. Well, I understand. But this puts you in a really good position, and I love that you recognize this right away.
And I got lost on where they were.
Right. But you played it well all the same. You hit the shots that you needed to there. You knew the rough area that they were going to be in, and so you aimed there. And you dodged perfectly in time because you knew that a shot was coming and that you would need to throw them off. And then you're immediately turning to the next player that you need to worry about. You turn your attention to the zone, and now, again, we want to push up.
And yeah, I'm back here painting again. I have to take space. That seems like a big one. That is a bad habit I'm having right here.
Yeah, this is like Mercy habits.
Yeah, I'm just like, all right.
I'm off the front lines now. Bye, guys.
Yeah, it's like fight's done. Let me charge ult, but I should be fight's done. Let me take space.
And you're gonna charge ult better by pushing.
That's also true. Yep.
Their base is going to be painted. Your area you already control. There's probably not a lot for you to clean up.
I don't think I'll ever call it special. I think I'll just always say ult. It's gonna be hard to unlearn.
Yeah, for a while I had that issue because I played a lot of League of Legends, and so the thing is, when you're in the competitive community, you start hearing it that way so often that it starts to become like something that you just say, you pick up.
But ult is one syllable. It seems better for comms.
That is true, and some people probably use it for that reason. But usually if it's like... usually if it's a situation where you're calling about specials, it's the time before a fight breaks out, and so you're just kind of game planning, you're relaxing a little bit, so I don't think the extra syllable
matter as much.
tends to matter. Oh, wow. All right. You do actually get them while they're firing. That's definitely risky, but it worked out.
I play so scared of Blob Lobber after the first two things that happened.
Nice. So with that pick, while you may not be able to move forward immediately, you want to start taking ground back. You can't just
ignore the player on the right here.
You can't just like hold forward because they're controlling the zone in front of you. But if you fan out a little bit with your team, eventually one of you is going to find a way in because they are 3 and you are 4. They can't cover everything that you can do.
There's a player behind the sniper tower here. Should I just ignore that and go in then?
So the player back there, if you go around the left-hand side, you have cover around this, and you're isolating them from the fight.
Okay.
If somebody from here doesn't challenge you while you're doing this, then you can just swing around and pinch them. If somebody over here does challenge you while you're doing it, you can just dodge roll diagonally to keep this in between you and them, and engage on this player in a 1v1.
Always be looking for the opportunity to go further forward then.
Right.
Okay.
Well, okay, not always. Always look for that when you're at an advantage.
Yeah.
Right now you're in a 4v3, and that's why you want to be pushing up. You want to capitalize and snowball this advantage. But because this player went down over here, chances are this left-hand side here is less defended because the player who everyone was counting on to exert control over this zone is now down. It's possible that there is still someone over here just like hiding behind this cover. And so you do still have to be a little worried about that. You can't just like peek this if there's like a roller around here or something, or a brush. But they don't really have a lot of weapons that can splat you quickly. And right now you're on top of all of your teammates, so everyone can just focus on the same spot. That is not a bad fight to take there. It is unfortunate that you trade. I think when you get shot there, I would probably actually heal before going for this. Because that shot actually does end up mattering for the trade. But your teammates should still be able to hold this because it is a 3v2 still. They could really be painting the zone more than they are. Darn. Okay. So they get one. You get one. And now you're at a numbers advantage, and you don't want to be backing up right now. I would be dropping behind this piece of cover and collecting information and thinking about what aggressive plays I could make.
Yeah, I saw myself go back, and I'm just trying to think what was my thought process even there. I don't... This time I honestly just don't know. Oh no.
Ooh, what happened there?
Blob Lobber again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are those all registered on their screen?
Yeah, because those looked like they missed cleanly on the replay here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of wild. But, yeah, that's unfortunate. Because, like, they fanned the shots out really well, too, so that each one actually, like, was hitting you on your way over to the left here. But I do like this play in general, the Blob Lobber shots notwithstanding, because as soon as you can get behind this piece of cover, now you're pinching them between your teammates. You're cutting off their escape route.
Blob Lobber's been getting me all.
Yeah, their aim is pretty good. Like, they know where they're shooting.
Yeah, I was like, this time I'm just like, I'm not engaging that corner. Not again.
Yeah, I don't dislike this idea. In some cases. Right now, we're a little bit close to losing lead to be going quite this slowly, but if we just go hard right now, we probably have time. A reef slider to initiate probably would have been a good play. At the speed that we kind of move in, they have time to adapt to where we are and take different positions.
I think it just charged.
Like it was charged, I think.
Oh, it was charged here.
So it's right here, I think, that it charges.
Okay, yeah, I could have engaged with it right here.
Right. So like a reef slider right across there forces this player back, forces this player back. It creates a big explosion on their side of the zone. If your teammates have, it looks like an ink storm out, they probably get zone cap for that, even if you just immediately die.
Yeah, that's my concern with it, because it's like, I just expect myself to immediately die if I do it in like a what feels unsafe like that.
But it ends up working out. Just the concern I have here is that this Jet Squelcher is going to see you at a higher level of play, like even as you're dropping down. So if you're going to drop down and be outside of cover, you're putting yourself in a position where they have range on you before you have range on them, and you could have been lasered out before you were able to engage behind the cover here.
And I guess especially since they were one down, it's not as big of a deal that the Reef Slider might just kill me.
Right.
Because like that's a lot of time my concern, like trying to find where to use it is like I think I'm just gonna die. But if I trade and get a lot of area control, I guess that's worth it.
Yeah. Like what I'd probably rather do is like get behind cover here and then look for an opportunity to use it. Maybe not like straight away, just like there are players here, go. But like if maybe you got to the left-hand side of this and Reef Slidered in behind them like this, now they have to turn around, and them turning around away from the zone, even if they just immediately delete you, is again taking a lot of pain off the zone. You might catch this player off guard because they get forced to retreat by your teammate into you. So there are definitely some uses for it. Also, if you go like diagonally and end up maybe over here, you potentially use this snipe area to block this player from hitting you. So that might actually just be safe. But it looks like you win anyway. Yep. Zone guard, ground traveler. Yes, of course. Tetradoolies. Oops. I wish it showed.
It does. Oh. It does. Right after. It's like way at the end. But I definitely made sure that I'd go pause series and then show.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, like I wish this showed way earlier in the process. Like, because you're asked whether you want to stick with your team before you see this information. Like, you might say stick with your team and then be like, oh wait, my brush went 1 in 15 in that game. Oh no. Like that sort of thing can happen, but fairly solid. Like I'm looking at things like KD. I'm looking at how much you painted, and that's a decent amount for a Tetradoolies. You are not you're not an especially high painting weapon, but you outpainted, for example, their Aerospray because their Aerospray kept dying, and don't play Aerospray.
I have 11. 212 on the. Oh my god.
Yeah, don't play Dapples, kids. Dapples don't have range. They might seem like they paint, but they're bad at painting. Also, they splat very quickly if you are in range to like touch them. But like, think of them like brass knuckles. Okay, brass knuckles are not actually that like effective a weapon because they don't extend your range. So. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be right next to one, but if you play a 52 gal, you never get that close to them. So
52 gals are scary. They 2-tap me on my way in.
And they also paint more than the Dapple Doolies, and they also have a better sub-weapon than the Dapple Doolies, and they also have a better special than the Dapple Doolies. Dapple Doolies are not doing great right now. They've never been great, but they're especially not doing great right now. Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Let's see. Any other questions as of right now? I mean, I guess so far notice for this, the big takeaways were play more to cut off space and cut off retreats and be a bit look for when advantage to push more forward. Seemed to be the biggest one. More awareness of just like getting more used to where I should be checking. Like there were 2 times where players were on screen I just didn't see them, and the rainstorm caught me 2 times, so I'm just ignoring it. I guess this game wasn't as bad about me like being too afraid to take engagements. I guess I'm just like trying to think of if there's a question I could ask related to that, but I can't think of anything in particular.
Something that I would recommend if you want to learn more about the frontline role, and Tetras, they have a bit of an interesting kind of relationship to the roles. Like Skirmisher, Slayer, they're kind of obviously FLC's whole thing about writing about Slayers and Skirmishers is, look, everybody does all of these things. You need to like stop thinking of them as just I am the support. Like you're gonna have to do slaying and skirmishing and anchoring as the support player sometimes. But I talk a lot in my map mode of the day guides on YouTube about the role of a frontliner on a given map. So if you were to go and watch like the Mako Mart one the Inkblot one, for example, I think it was like Inkblot clams. It would explain, on that particular map with this map geometry, here is the way that you push up. Here is the like line you want to be pushing up on. Here's good pieces of cover to take on your way forward. So here's kind of an ideal path for you to take. I talk about that sort of thing on there a lot of the time. So that might give you more of an idea to start informing you like, okay, if I'm here and I'm just doing my like swim over here and paint two specks and then paint over here and paint two more specks. If you catch yourself in that pattern, and you're trying to figure out what is my actual game plan, those kinds of resources would probably be good for you to go and look at.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll check those out. Oh, yeah, this one's like not really as directly related. But like when you're moving with substrafing, do you usually let go of R between each turn, or do you just kind of keep it held down as substrafe mode, and you just tap the squid button while holding R the whole time?
I usually let go of it, but that's because like I'm usually not anticipating doing it that many times. Like swimming back and forth in circles is not an especially useful thing to do a lot of the time. Usually it's I want to make a quick turn. I need to make a quick direction shift, but I am doing that to get around a corner. I am doing that to avoid a bomb. It's not like I am doing this back and forth like, oh, you're gonna miss me, you're gonna miss me, you're gonna miss me, because eventually you have to return fire in an engagement. You can't just like let them keep shooting at you and hope they miss. And if I'm trying to make them miss as a Tetra Dualies, I'm probably dodge rolling instead.
Yeah.
I would also recommend getting to the S Plus video where I talk about advantages and disadvantages, because another really major factor that plays into your knowledge of when to go in is your knowledge of the game state and what advantages your team has. So using the UI to recognize number advantage, using the UI to recognize special advantage, seeing where you have paint control and an advantage that you can move around in that paint. All of these little advantages and disadvantages, once you start internalizing those and look for them habitually, you'll put together a better picture in your mind of what the game state is and what you need to be doing in that game state.
Okay. That makes sense. I guess another thing, I'm still getting, I guess I just need to, I opened it like twice when it comes to using map. I'm just trying to figure out like when to be using more often. Right now, I'm just trying to force myself to use it way more than I should, so I can just like adapt it back from there. But it's like, what are the main things I guess I'm looking for when I'm checking map? Because at this point, I check it like so fast that I barely register what I'm looking at. Trying to get used to being able to internalize that info. But I guess what info should I be trying to internalize when I open the map?
That is a very good question. With the map, you're taking advantage of the fact that Splatoon puts paint on the ground in areas where your opponents have map control. You're taking advantage of just, there is this neon bright color and this very distinct neon bright color that indicate two different areas where the teams have control. And what you're looking for is wherever it is that you want to go, you are looking for enemy paint being put down in that location. And if you see it, now you know an enemy location. Early on, it's a very good idea to check because nothing is painted yet, so there's no camouflaging it. You will see 4 lines that show exactly where every enemy player is going to be when they roll out. So you can say, okay, nobody went left. I can just take left and start applying pressure from left. Or you can say, they're pretty well spread out. I'm going to look where my team goes, and we're going to try and like isolate 1 or 2 players on the side and see if we can rush them and get a numbers advantage. You're also looking, when you check map, I'm about to drop off this ledge. Is there enemy ink underneath this ledge? It's like one little quick question that you have about a very specific position that you want to know is safe. You flick it open and you get your eyes already trained on that spot on the map.
Yeah, so that's going to take a lot more practice.
Right. And you see pink or purple. Okay, it's purple. We need to back up.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have to practice just like knowing when I'm opening the map. Like first where I am is currently something that takes me a second to be like, where on the map is where I am. But that's just getting used to the maps and looking at them and how they're laid out. That's just going to take looking at maps more often.
It's helped me a lot to have to do call out practice because I play competitively, so I have to do the call outs. But learning call outs on a map means that you have to have this mental map of what it looks like from the overhead already. So like I can take where I'm at on the map, close my eyes, and immediately like draw on the full shape of the map what location I'm at, because I've been studying the callouts from an overhead and trying to translate those into what I can see from the third-person POV.
Okay.
So if you do want to, get competitive with it, that would be a useful thing to do. Now, the only maps that you have callouts on right now are really the Splatoon 2 maps. The Splatoon 1 maps are so different, especially like Mahi Mahi, that the callouts probably aren't going to carry over. The entire spawn of Mahi Mahi is completely different from how it was in Splatoon 1. So that's not even particularly useful. And then the Splatoon 3 maps don't have universal callouts yet, so you just kind of have to assign something to it and practice saying that or something like that. But for the Splatoon 2 maps, that would be a good exercise. Just like whenever there's one in rotation, go and like look at the callouts list and maybe recon it or something and look around like, okay, that's their plat. That's our tree. That's right stack.
Would you be able to link me that like callout sheet, I guess?
Yes.
That's somewhere available.
That is, I think that's in the resources of the Discord server actually for Squid School.
Oh, okay.
Let me double check. But I'm pretty sure that's there. I probably would have put it here fairly early on. There it is. It was posted July 14th in the resources section of the Squid School Discord server.
Community callouts list. Okay, cool.
Yep. I just posted all of the links in chat. The Discord server is one of those links. So if you're looking for those, again, resources section, July 14th was when that was posted. And that gives you... I prefer the overhead view because it shows the map like geometry instead of just black and white lines. I find that a lot easier to study with.
Oh, it's like a whole folder. Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah. So one of them I think is like the game's map file. So that's like what the map screen will look like. And then one of those is an actual spectator cam overhead image taken of the maps.
Sure. And you said you prefer like the spectator cam one?
Yeah, just because you can see the actual geometry of the maps.
Sure.
So it's more helpful for learning, although the other one is actually what you will see on the map screen.
Okay, good to know. I'll dig around there later.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think I have any other questions then.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, I wasn't expecting to stream today, but now we've got content. We love ourselves some content. So gonna do some quick plugs on stream. Also in the links that I have posted in the chat is the link to my Metafy account, and that was how this appointment was set up. So if that is something that you are interested in, that is available there. I also have a Patreon and YouTube channel, TikTok, Twitter, all sorts of different places. I'm trying to do this sort of content full time, and your support is what will make that possible. So would appreciate you guys checking that out and following what you'd like, supporting however it is convenient for you to, even if you can't throw money my way. Even a like on a video that I post helps an awful lot. So thank you guys so much. That is going to be it for our stream. I've got some stuff that I've got to do. But thanks for coming on, Rakali, and we'll see you all next time.
Yeah, thanks.